Valley Memorial Park. I'm Glen Clark, and this is Stories of the Dark, and we're out here today just looking around at different graves. I've got a couple of family members up here and some dear friends that I was up here visiting, but we're also up here because of course this is Labor Day weekend, and we want to remember those who gave their lives for their cause, and also military people. We want to remember them as well. Also, the topic of tonight's show is going to be haunted cemeteries. Now, you may be asking a question like, well, aren't all cemeteries haunted? Most of them are, and some aren't. I mean, you can get some really good Class A EVPs. In fact, I have from this very cemetery that I'm at right now. Probably back in 2009, 2010, I was here with some other investigators, and we investigated, and I got some really good EVPs, and including those of some children. Unfortunately, I don't have those anymore because of a lot of my stuff got stolen during a break-in of my personal vehicle, but that's okay. So anyway, we're going to take a short break and come back, and I'll do a little bit of EVP work, live EVP work, see if we catch anything, and you can let me know in your comments. You can comment on the section below. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. It's Glen Clark, live from Victor Valley Memorial Park, Stories of the Dark. And welcome back to Stories of the Dark. I am Glen Clark out here at Victor Valley Memorial Park. As I said, we're out here on this Labor Day weekend to pay our respects to family of mine and some friends that I know personally that have been laid to rest here. Also, we're also talking about haunted cemeteries, and as I said before, I mean, cemeteries are notorious for EVP work, and we're going to do some of that here during the program, and as well as probably share some stories later on of different cemeteries around the country. But right now I'm just walking around looking at some of the different headstones. There's one here that dates back to 1970, another one here 1969. Earliest ones that we've seen are like 2017, 2018 on the far side of the cemetery. This is a very, very big area, and my producer, Blakcirclegirl, is also, producer / girlfriend rather, is she's taking some videos, and we're about to get wet here due to some sprinklers, so I'm going to take a break. We'll relocate ourselves, and we'll come back. It's Glen Clark, Stories of the Dark.
Here are 5 of the most haunted cemeteries in America. Number 5, Gettysburg Cemetery It is a resting place for many soldiers who lost their lives in the Battle of Gettysburg. Reportedly, ghosts in Confederate and Union uniforms can be seen in the cemetery. According to a CNN report, a man wearing a Confederate Army hat is frequently seen here. It is said that he tries to chat with the tourists or pose for photos. Those who have had their picture taken with him claim he disappears in print. Number 4. Resurrection Catholic Cemetery in Chicago. Once in the cemetery, you may encounter the ghost of Mary, a young lady who died during the 1930s in a car accident near the cemetery. Travel Channel reports that her ghost has also been spotted outside the cemetery, where she asks for a ride but then vanishes mysteriously. Number 3. St. Louis Cemetery Number 1 in New Orleans. According to CNN, visitors have reported sightings of Civil War ghosts and phantom figures in the cemetery. It is said of all the ghosts seen here, the one of Marie Laveau, a renowned voodoo practitioner back in the 19th century, is the most cited. Number 2. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Hollywood, California. Founded in 1899, the cemetery is a resting place for many Hollywood legends such as Rudolph Valentino, Johnny Ramone, and Douglas Fairbanks. It is said that this famous cemetery is a site for many paranormal activities. Ghosts of Rudolph Valentino, Clifton Webb, and a woman called the Black Lady are often seen on the cemetery grounds. Number 1. Salem Cemetery in Hendrysburg, Ohio. It is said that many ghosts haunt this graveyard. Supposedly, the ghost of Louisa Fox, the first citizen to be murdered in the Kirkwood Township, is often seen weeping near her grave.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Joe with Ghost Force Paranormal. We're in Victorville.
Maximum volume.
Memorial Park. Kind of hard to see there. Joining up with a different team. They invited me to come down and share with them the experience of checking out this mortuary, cemetery, crematorium, I think it is. And the team that I'm here with is RIP, which is research and research investigation of the paranormal. Pretty clever, RIP, I like it. And as you can see, we're here now. Seems pretty exciting, and I'm ready to take care of some business.
Who wants to ride the horsey first?
Read a horsey ride.
I heard I do.
I do.
You heard it?
You gotta get up there and ride it.
Yeah, feel free to come on up.
You gotta go over there. You gotta get up there and ride the horses.
Okay, who's first? What's your name? Lester? Okay. If you want to hop on up. You're first. Go ahead. It's all you. Do you know how to use it?
Is your name Lester? Or is it Leslie?
Leslie.
What's your last name? Somebody want to get up there?
Yeah.
Can you get up there then and ride? Tell us what your name is.
Leslie? How did you ride? Can you talk?
Leslie, are you there? Are you there, sweetheart? Come on, everybody get in line. The horse is up here. The horse is up here. Everybody get in line.
Once you get up here, it rocks like this. Okay, I'm gonna move it. See that? Does that look like fun? Like that? I'm gonna do it again, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, come on up. Your turn.
Would it be cool, guys, and girls, go over and touch this thing right here? And when you guys light this up, like I'm doing, can you make that turn colors also? That's a fun little toilet color. It won't hurt you. It's just fun.
Come on, friends, get in line. Who's next? Who? Robert? You want me to make a roar? Can you get the horse? Yeah? Okay, whenever you're ready. Who's next? Okay,
I'm gonna do it, rocket.
if you don't do it, I'm gonna do it.
You guys see that? You didn't hear that?
Your name.
Somebody said, why don't you? And somebody else said, rocket.
Rocket. Okay, here I go.
You heard that, right?
Here I go.
Play.
I'm feeling dizzy right now.
Are you?
Yeah. It's kind of cool. I can feel like there's some kids on here, actually. That's kind of cool.
He's feeling very sad.
That's how I felt. I felt really sad. Like I felt down.
I'm not really going to touch this. This is, yeah, come on down.
Well, ask him to come and celebrate. Why are you?
Are you speaking to one of these little devices here? Is that what your name is? When you touch that little round thing right there, you can light up.
Come on down. Who's next? I'm definitely feeling dizzy.
You start feeling too dizzy, go down, don't fall.
I got you.
Oh, yeah, it's a big tree.
And that's just string on it.
Who's next?
What's your name? Can you tell us what your name is? What's your name, sweetheart? Can you say your name again, sweetheart?
welcome back to Stories of the Dark. I am Glen Clark, and we are out here at Victor Valley Memorial Park in Victorville, California, just paying our respects to some of the different people that are laid to rest here, as well as a couple of old friends of mine that I just happened to see while walking through. Also, my grandparents are buried here. Grandfather died in 1972, and my grandmother in 2002. So I was here also to pay our respects. Producer and girlfriend Blakcirclegirl is out here taking photos, and we're going to review those and post some on our Twitter accounts and Instagram as well. You can also follow me at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also, I have Google Plus, and I've also joined a few different groups on Facebook, which I will be posting my podcast to those also. It's important to note that we are out here in the middle of the day. We are not out here in the night, because otherwise we would have to obtain permission from local city officials to be here. We don't want to make anybody upset, and also I would encourage anybody who wants to come out here and look around. Do it during the day. You can get results the same as you could at night. So I'm going to be conducting a little bit of EVP work. If I catch anything, I'll air it. Or even if there's something comes in while I'm talking right now, please let me know. If I don't hear it myself during setup for the program. We are standing around. There's a lot of there's sprinklers running right now, and so that's why during the last break I had to run real quick because we started to get a little wet. So which is never good when you have digital cameras, voice recorders, stuff like that around. You don't want to get those wet, because then they won't work. So anyway, again, we're out at Victor Valley Memorial Park in Victorville, California. We're going to take another break. We'll come back and I'll share some stories from other cemeteries back in the studio. This is Glen Clark. This is Stories of the Dark. welcome back to Stories of the Dark. I am Glen Clark, and back in the confines of the good old studio now. Certainly had fun out there at the Victor Valley Memorial Park. Got to see quite a few of the different headstones that are around, and it is amazing on how old the cemetery actually is. As we were leaving, I was looking at the sign, and it said it was established in 1917. So that cemetery is just about a little bit over 100 years old. So that's pretty good. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to read for you. It's comes from hauntedrooms.com. It's 11 most haunted cemeteries in America. Cemeteries are creepy places to be at the best of times. After all, it is disconcerting to think that you're surrounded by the corpses of hundreds, if not thousands of people. So when you throw a few ghost stories and unexplained events into the mix, it really takes the spookiness to a whole new level. If you're thinking, what are the most haunted cemeteries near me, then you're in the right place. Let's explore some of the most haunted cemeteries in the United States. Number 11, Westminster Hall and Burying Ground, Baltimore, Maryland. The cemetery at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Baltimore, Maryland is apparently the home of the Screaming Skull. The legend states that a minister was murdered here, and every night at the same time his skull would start screaming. Eventually his body was dug up and the skull gagged before being encased in a concrete block that now stands by his gravestone. According to locals, it is possible to hear the muffled screaming on still nights. Edgar Allan Poe is also buried here, but he seems to be at rest. Number 10, Union Cemetery, Easton, Connecticut. Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut dates back to the 1600s, so it is not difficult to imagine that it is haunted. In fact, the cemetery is known locally as White Lady Cemetery, after its most prevalent ghost. This lady in white is said to roam the cemetery at night and will sometimes venture beyond its gates and onto the road. Several drivers have reported actually hitting her with their vehicle, only for her to promptly disappear. She is apparently not alone in haunting Union Cemetery, as there have been reports of glowing red eyes peering at them from out of the darkest corners. We don't do red eyes. I don't really like those. Number 9, Bonaventure Cemetery, Savannah, Georgia. Savannah is one city that is incredibly proud of its ghosts, so it is only to be expected that they have their own haunted cemetery, complete with a chilling tale to tell. The most famous is said to be roaming Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah is Gracie Watson, a little girl who died of pneumonia at the age of just 6 years old. Not only has little Gracie been spotted playing between the tombstones, but the statue of her grave has also been known to cry tears of blood on occasion. Number 8, Resurrection Cemetery, Justice, Illinois. Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois is an incredibly creepy place to be. Even the name conjures up spooky ideas. The most famous haunting here relates to the spirit known as Resurrection Mary. Mary was apparently a young girl who was killed in a hit-and-run accident sometime in the 1930s. Witnesses say she can now be seen walking that same street where she was killed, and that she sometimes hitches a ride back to the cemetery with young male drivers who are shocked when she vanishes from their car as they near the cemetery gates. I know personally I would not like picking up somebody only to turn around and they're not there. I'd wonder where they went. But then again, if you're near a cemetery, that wouldn't be hard to figure out. Number 7, Howard Street Cemetery, Salem, Massachusetts. Salem, Massachusetts is famous for one thing. The witch trials in the late 1600s. Speculation was rife about who was and who wasn't practicing dark magic. One of those accused was a wealthy farmer named Giles Corey. He was accused of being a warlock and was tortured to death during his so-called trial. Corey is apparently still seeking revenge for his untimely death and is said to haunt Howard Street Cemetery and the surrounding area. This would actually make perfect sense given the fact that he's not only buried here in Howard Street Cemetery, but it was also the spot where he died as a result of pressing. He is believed to specifically target sheriff's officers, perhaps as they are the closest thing to the witch finders that we have today. Corey's ghost has also come to be a harbinger of tragedy. Whenever his ghost is seen around town, he usually directly before something tragic occurs. Number 6, Hollywood Forever Cemetery, Los Angeles, California. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles is registered in the National Register of Historic Places. There are plenty of deceased stars who call this place their final resting place, and it even shares a wall with Paramount Studios. Among the famous faces that are still roaming around is Rudolph Valentino. His ghost has been seen wandering around the area looking every bit as handsome as he did prior to his unexpected death in 1926. Every year, a mysterious lady in black has visited his grave on the anniversary of his death. It is said that she still visits now, albeit in spirit form. Other Hollywood stars buried here are not yet ready to leave the spotlight include Clifton Webb, who also starred in the Mr. Belvedere films and has been seen frequently wandering around the graveyard. Number 5, Silver Cliff Cemetery, Silver Cliff, Colorado. Another one of the most haunted cemeteries in America is said to be Silver Cliff Cemetery in Colorado. However, it is not a ghostly apparition that this place is famous for, but rather the Silver Cliff lights. These ghost lights are described as looking like blue lantern lights or bright white spheres. They appear over the cemetery gates at night and then float through the burial ground, bouncing off of the tombstones. There has never been any cause for the lights established, and most locals agree that they are paranormal in nature. The cemetery is still in use today and is owned and operated by the town. Stoll Cemetery, Kansas City, Missouri, number 4. Stoll Cemetery in Kansas is considered by many to serve as one of the gates to hell. There have been ghost stories linked to this place for hundreds of years. One of the focal points for the hauntings seemed to be an abandoned church that stands right next to the graveyard. Many people have had strange experiences when entering the church, including being grabbed by unseen hands. On one occasion, the Pope himself refused to fly over what he called a demonic piece of land. Local legends suggest that this has always been an evil place and that the church was constructed in an attempt to cover the gateway. However, after the church closed, it became a meeting point for witches and Satanists to gather and hold rituals. There are also rumors that witches were hanged in the trees when the church's ground in the past. There is one tree in particular which is now growing through a tombstone, which is also said to be a focal point for paranormal activity. Very interesting story. I would actually mind visiting that one. Number 3, St. Louis Cemetery, New Orleans, Louisiana. Anyone who knows anything about New Orleans knows that you can barely take a step without running into something with a paranormal twist to it. St. Louis Cemetery is known to be incredibly haunted, and most believe that much of the activity reported here can be attributed to the fact that notorious voodoo queen Marie Laveau is one of the 100,000 people buried there. Regarded by many as the most haunted place in New Orleans, hundreds of people visit her grave each year to ask for a wish to be granted. I spent 6 months in Louisiana, and their cemeteries take on a whole new different meaning than anywhere here in California that I've seen. A lot of their graves, or the caskets, are actually buried above ground, and they do that because of the enormous amount of rain they get there. Because if the ground gets too wet, the caskets would just float right out of the ground. In fact, that happened quite a bit during the Hurricane Katrina and the rains they had just a couple of years ago. I saw on TV where caskets were actually floating right out of the ground, and so that's why they do that. But I never did get to visit this particular cemetery. I just read about New Orleans. I wanted to, but just didn't really get time to. So anyway, continuing, Boot Hill, Tombstone, Arizona. This cemetery in Tombstone, Arizona has been known simply as Boot Hill. The burial ground is certainly not well cared for, and the strange, overgrown look about the place only seems to add to the spooky reputation that it has. Those who have dared to go exploring Boot Hill have described seeing very unfriendly spirits around the place. It is believed that many of those buried here have links to the gunfight at the OK Corral involving the Earp brothers, Doc Holliday, and the Clayton gang. Number 1. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Bremen, Illinois. Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Illinois is not only considered to be one of the most haunted cemeteries in America, but some would go as far to say that it is one of the most haunted places in the entire world. The burial ground is tucked away in the middle of a creepy forest that looks spooky enough based only on its appearance. Once you get into the ghostly tales that are connected to this place, you can soon begin to realize that there are even more reasons why this cemetery creeps you out. It was once used as a dumping ground for 1930s gangsters to leave their victims, and some of them have been seen wandering around the cemetery. Many visitors have reported seeing unexplained things during visits to the cemetery, with one of the most common sightings being of a ghostly woman who sits on the tombstones. Once again, that was hauntedrooms.com. You can have a look at that. Also, the YouTube videos I played for you. One was from a group, RIP Paranormal. They were at Victor Valley Memorial Park. They did a night session. Kind of unclear whether or not they had permission to do that, but that's their business, not mine. As always, I do want to stress that when you do go out and do ghost hunting, no matter where you go, whether it be an abandoned building, whether it be a cemetery, or even just just walking around like a hotel or something, try to always let people know what you're doing and try to get, permission, because in the end it does look better on you. And because I know there's a lot of groups out there that they just go and do it, and then they get in trouble, and that's what gives paranormal investigating kind of a bad name, is when people start getting in trouble for what they do. I mean, we're here to have fun. We're here to hunt for ghosts, and we want to make sure that we do it safe and without getting in trouble by any law enforcement or anything like that. We don't want people getting arrested. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and end the program. Once again, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My email, you can also email me if you'd like. That's storiesofthedark1@gmail.com. storiesofthedark1@gmail.com. And I'd like to thank Victor Valley Memorial Park for my being there today. There was also some other people out there today visiting loved ones that had been laid to rest there. So we tried to be as respectful as we could, and we took some photos. Those are still under review, and if we find anything good, we'll certainly post them on our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter accounts. And we'll be doing some EVP work there at a later time. We kind of had to leave today because of the sprinklers running. It was getting everything kind of wet, so we left a little early. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close the show. I'd like to thank you all for being a part of the podcast. We'll see you in our next edition. Until then, I am Glen Clark, and this is Stories of the Dark. And have a great night, everyone.